Khaybar was more than a settlement. It was a thriving oasis in the northern desert, home to prosperous Jewish tribes. Its farms, fortresses, and flowing wells made it a jewel of Arabia. But prosperity can draw envy, and in 628 CE, Khaybar became a target for conquest. Muhammad and his followers marched north with thousands of fighters. They did not come to negotiate. They came for the land, the wealth, and the submission of its people. For Khaybar's residents, there would be no warning, only the sound of an army approaching their gates. Fortress by fortress, Khaybar fell under siege. The defenders fought desperately, hurling arrows and stones from their walls, but starvation and exhaustion gnawed at them. For every resistance, the Muslims responded with fire, steel, and unrelenting pressure. When the gates were finally breached, the violence was swift and merciless. Warriors stormed through, cutting down defenders where they stood. Homes were raided, families torn apart, and the cries of the dying filled the air. The oasis that had once been a place of life was drowned in blood. With Khaybar subdued, its survivors faced grim fates. Men were executed, their bodies left as warnings. Women and children were taken as spoils, divided among the victors as property. What had been a community was reduced to captives and corpses, their lives traded as rewards of war. After the battle, leaders demanded the wealth of Khaybar's tribes. Gold, silver, and stored grain were seized, but suspicion lingered that more was hidden. The victors were not content with surrender. They wanted every last coin torn from the hands of the defeated. Kinana ibn al-Rabi, a leader of Khaybar, was accused of concealing treasure. He was bound, tortured with fire and iron, his body broken in a desperate attempt to force confession. When he gave no answer, he was executed, his death as cruel as the greed that demanded it. The women of Khaybar were not spared. They were divided as war prizes, forced into slavery. Among them was Safiya bint Huyay, taken after witnessing her husband and family killed. In a single night, she was transformed from a woman of dignity into a possession of conquest. Where once there had been laughter, trade, and the rhythm of farming life, now there was only silence. The wells still flowed, the date palms still bore fruit, but the people of Khaybar were gone, killed, enslaved, or displaced. The oasis lived on, but its soul had been stolen. In the records of the victors, the conquest was written as a triumph blessed by God. The plunder, the torture, the enslavement, all were cloaked in the language of faith. But strip away the piety, and the truth is clear. Khaybar was not a holy victory. It was a crime carved into history with fire and the sword. Those who survived Khaybar carried invisible scars. Families were torn apart, women stripped of their freedom, children forced to live as captives. Their voices were silenced, their songs lost, their lives reduced to shadows. For them, the conquest was not victory. It was endless grief. Khaybar was not an isolated event. It followed a pattern. Poets killed for their words, tribes annihilated for dissent, opponents erased in the name of power. Each act of bloodshed added to a legacy of fear, warning others of the price of resistance. In later retellings, Khaybar became a tale of triumph, a miracle of divine favor. But behind the pious gloss lies the brutality of conquest. When treasure mattered more than mercy, when women were treated as spoils, and when death became the answer to defiance, what remained was not holiness, but horror. Centuries have passed, yet the memory of Khaybar endures for many. It is not a story of glory, but of injustice. a wound in history, reminding us that faith was wielded like a blade, cutting down lives in the name of conquest. The conquest of Khaybar was more than a battle. It was a crime against humanity, masked by the language of religion. It teaches us a truth we cannot ignore. When power is cloaked in sanctity, the blood spilled is still real. The screams still echo, and the victims still deserve to be remembered. Khaybar was not just a battle. It was a massacre. Hundreds slaughtered, families torn apart, women and children reduced to property, and all of it justified in the name of faith. History calls it conquest, but listen closer, and you hear something else. The silence of poets murdered for their words, the cries of tribes erased for daring to exist. This wasn't glory. This was fear. This was power enforced by blood. Khaybar stands as a reminder. When religion is turned into a weapon, no one is safe. The blood was real. The screams were real. And the victims, they deserve to be remembered, not erased.